tired. Look, I got all tripped.
Okay, everybody, with the time being 7 o'clock, I would like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order on this January 10th of 2022. Can I please have a roll call?
Titus.
Here.
Bala.
Here.
Hayleitner. Here. Bongard.
Here.
Bancroft.
Here.
Lencioni.
Yes.
Petrella.
Here.
Warball.
Here.
Bessner.
Here.
Weber.
Here. Thank you. We do have a quorum, so now we can move on. There's nothing for the omnibus tonight, so we're going to move right into the presentation. Russell, did you want to make an introduction?
Yes, good evening. This concept plan for Charlestown Mall will be presented by the developer and contract purchaser, S.R. Jacobson. They initially filed a concept plan this past fall, which was reviewed by the Plan Commission. That plan was revised based on the Plan Commission feedback, and tonight S.R. Jacobson will be presenting the revised plan to the committee. The Plan Commission comments are included in the staff materials. Tonight, the developer and staff are seeking the committee's feedback on the concept plan. The developer would like to know whether the committee members support a project substantially in this form with TIF assistance necessary. If there does not appear to be support, the developer may not continue to pursue the redevelopment project. So with that, I will turn over the presentation to S.R. Jacobson. Manny?
Thank you, Russell. For those presenting, please, when you get to the podium, state your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Manny Kayanicki with S.R. Jacobson Development Corporation. We're at 32400 Telegraph Road in Bingham Farms, Michigan, about 25 miles north of Detroit. But most of our projects are here in Illinois. So first I wanted to introduce Scott Jacobson, who's the owner of S.R. Jacobson, Max Jacobson and Sandy Aaron, our associates, and also Daniel Stern, who is the principal of Max Stern Development Company. The partnership of our two companies are the developer of the project. S.R. Jacobson has 43 years of experience developing, building, and managing both single-family and multifamily real estate. The company was started by Scott Jacobson in 1978 and has acquired or developed over 100 residential communities in Michigan and Illinois. While we're based in Bingham Farms, we have been active in the Chicagoland market since 2011, and about half of our activities are here. For the past several years, we have been entirely focused on creating lifestyle apartment communities and have about 2,000 units in the approval and construction process. In Illinois, we recently completed an apartment community in Naperville, and we have ranch, town, home, and garden apartment communities under construction in Romeoville, Montgomery, and Orland Park. Max Stern Development Company is a commercial real estate firm specializing in the acquisition, development, and operation of commercial properties throughout the U.S. since 1992. It's based in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. We are neighbors back in Michigan with a strong relationship between our two companies, and we often do projects together, particularly when there is a commercial component. Max Stern has supervised the acquisition and development of more than 50 commercial properties across the country over the past 29 years and is currently managing about 7 million square feet of retail. They have also redeveloped 13 failed malls and retail centers, including Evergreen Mall in Illinois. Daniel is also a partner in MidAmerica Real Estate, the leading real estate leasing organization in Illinois and the Midwest. And no one is more expert than he is in evaluating what retail and restaurant needs exist in St. Charles. First, let me start off by saying that the redevelopment of a vacant enclosed mall is one of the most difficult undertakings in real estate development. Wall Street Journal ran an article a few weeks ago describing how none of the options for mall makeovers are easy. Conversions to other uses are complex and capital intensive. Plus, there's a great shortage of land in the area. Most developers would much prefer to buy land and avoid the expense, time, and complexity of tearing down an old mall. About 1,500 enclosed malls were constructed in the U.S. since 1956, when the Southdale Center opened in Edina, Minnesota. Of these, about 1,000 are still operating, but 300 are struggling and likely to close in the next 5 years due to the major shift in consumer preference that's occurring in the retail industry. In many cases, owners and investors are handing malls back to the lenders to cut their losses with debt higher than revenue. The Charlestown Mall struggled for 8 years before closing its doors in 2017. Only 2 internal businesses remain, Von Maur and Classic Cinema, along with Cooper's Hawk and Starbucks Verizon on the frontage outlots. Now, most successful mall redevelopments in the U.S. have consisted of makeovers to mixed-use centers by demolishing the enclosed mall structures and replacing them with new uses, meeting the needs of the market where they're located. The city's 2013 comprehensive land use plan for the Charlestown Mall has an alternative that suggests that the mall has the potential for mixed-use development that could foster a pedestrian mixed-use node with a mix of retail, restaurant, entertainment, recreation, and residential uses. Our market research supports this type of development. The challenge is to figure out how to redevelop the Charlestown Mall in an economically feasible way that accommodates $35 million of redevelopment cost, maintains the existing commercial uses during reconstruction, and satisfies the city's desire for a repurposed environment that will serve the needs of the residents of St. Charles. Now, there are several core elements that we believe are critical for the successful redevelopment of Charlestown Mall into a mixed-use center. First, tax increment finance district must be established so that a portion of the huge increase in taxes that will result from redevelopment will be applied to the costs of demolition and the reconstruction of site improvements that are necessary to accommodate new uses for the property. This is exactly the purpose for which TIFs were created. Without a TIF, redevelopment of the mall is not financially possible. Our TIF consultants have been working with the city's attorney, and we now have a proposed TIF structure generally acceptable to all the parties, with the developer paying the initial cost. Once we are in agreement regarding a concept plan, the TIF can be structured in detail. Second, sufficient tax revenues must be generated by the redevelopment to allow a portion of the new taxes to be applied to the cost of redevelopment. We have determined in our financial analysis that this revenue must come primarily from the real estate taxes generated by at least 500 residential uses. Since these residences will be the largest source of tax revenue, estimated at about $2.5 million per year. Additional but smaller tax revenues will come from new commercial uses. Third, Von Maur and Classic Cinema must form the core of the commercial area of the plan. We do not own these 2 properties, and that means we have to work around them. These 2 properties and their adjacent parking right now take up about 40% of the mall. But more importantly, they are viable ongoing businesses that, although hammered by both the closure of the mall and the pandemic, have proven their desirability to St. Charles by surviving some pretty tough conditions. Redevelopment of the mall will allow these businesses to thrive. And the presence of these existing businesses, if properly incorporated into a plan, will contribute to the success of the mall redevelopment by acting as anchors, which have the ability to draw a larger number of patrons that can then support the smaller businesses. Let's see if we have the site plan here. Yes. The mixed-use redevelopment plan for the Charlestown Mall can be summarized as the creation of an urban shopping, dining, and entertainment district integrated with residential neighborhoods, flanked by a hotel and new retail or restaurants along North Avenue, with all of the components interconnected by a strong network of pedestrian pathways. As Russell mentioned, a conceptual redevelopment plan was prepared and submitted to the city in September of 2021. Initial review of the proposed plan by the Planning Commission, by staff, and by council members provided us with a better understanding of the desires of city residents, with concerns, suggestions, and ideas on how to improve the plan for the redevelopment of the mall. In response to the feedback we received, we substantially revised the plan. which now reflects a team effort between the developer and the city. The central commercial element of the plan is intended to provide the residents of St. Charles with new entertainment, dining, and shopping experiences. This urban district is anchored at one end by the existing Starbucks and at the other end by the existing cinema. In between are restaurants with outside dining patios, specialty shops, the Von Maur department store with a drop-off and new entrances from this district, a food truck park, a large plaza with plenty of seating, an ice cream stand, an amphitheater, and an event gazebo.
Excuse
This
me.
district is
Can I say
pedestrian.
something real quick? This drawing you have on the board is the last
It's the
one.
old one.
It's the old one.
Good catch.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Thought that was important.
I don't know, is this, I have another flash drive. That was it. There we are. Great, thank you.
Good job, Rich.
The central commercial element of the plan, we already went through that. Let's see. Okay. This district is pedestrian-oriented with wide sidewalks along the street and parking out of sight. It will provide a sense of place where people can spend several hours, get a coffee at Starbucks, shop at a major department store, cross the street to a boutique shop, attend a festival event, dine at one of the restaurants or check out the food trucks, and have an ice cream cone in the plaza before taking in a movie. We've provided examples of these proposed amenities with our proposal. The large plaza is intended as the heart and focal point for the entire urban district. It will be visible from any point along the corridor, from the entrance roundabout to the street west of the cinema. The plaza will provide a mixture of landscaping and paved areas with plenty of seating. It will be perfect for festivals or just as an interesting place to hang out. An outdoor amphitheater will be incorporated into the plaza design to provide for community events such as summer concerts. A partially enclosed gazebo will accommodate Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and other events. A park will be located adjacent to the plaza on its north side. An ice cream stand will provide refreshments. The plaza and the park will provide a gathering place for both visitors to the commercial area and the residents of the proposed apartments. It will draw residents into the urban district, perhaps to get an ice cream cone or listen to music. It will help to integrate the residential and the commercial areas. The existing mall building is currently located between the cinema and Von Maur, which originally had entrances from the interior of the mall. When the mall is demolished, the north facade of Von Maur and the south facade of the cinema need to be reconstructed to provide ground-level entrances to the outside. This reconstruction provides opportunities to create new entrances that open directly into pedestrian plazas. The new cinema entrance will be located at the western end of the large new plaza, and the Von Maur entrance will be located on a smaller plaza. These plazas, although needing to be bisected by a street, will be connected by a major pedestrian crossing to tie them together. Now, since we prepared this concept plan, we determined with the fire department that a 26-foot wide fire lane will be needed to encircle the cinema, and that lane would be added to the plan at the next stage. One of the challenges in working around Von Maur is the location of their loading dock off the northeast corner of their building. Unfortunately, this loading dock cannot be relocated. Since it's prominent on our new urban corridor that we're creating, the only solution is to shield it from view. So we have provided a concept rendering for how this can be done. Since it's also necessary to maintain the ability for trucks to back into the loading dock, we have strategically positioned a drive across the street that will allow the trucks to pull in before backing up. Now, the east and the north sides of Von Maur will be at ground level. The south and the west sides of Von Maur will continue to be at the upper level, which is about 19 feet higher. Because of this difference in elevation, there cannot be a vehicle connection between the upper west parking lot of Von Maur and the lower parking lots below to the north, serving both Von Maur and the cinema. Since an important goal of the plan is to create a pedestrian network linking all portions of the site, a wide pedestrian stair will be constructed off the northwest corner of Von Maur, providing walkable access from the hotel and the upper parking lot to the plazas below and the entrance to the cinema. The proposed hotel is located in the western portion of the site across the street from Cooper's Hawk. This location provides both a convenient place to dine for hotel residents and provides the restaurant with new customers. It's also just a short walk for the hotel patrons to the urban district and the cinema. We believe the redevelopment of the mall in the manner we propose will create a highly desirable hotel site. It will be a great place to stay compared with most hotels where it's necessary to get back into your car for dining, shopping, and entertainment. Now, we're aware of the existing situation regarding insufficient parking at Cooper's Hawk, with overflow parking having to use the parking lot across the street. So we've moved the street parallel with North Avenue as far northward as possible to expand the restaurant's existing parking lot while maintaining parking in front of Von Maur, which is critical for them. Moving the street also creates more room for proposed either new restaurants or retail facilities along the North Street frontage. In order to handle traffic congestion at the primary central entrance to the site, we've created a roundabout that can handle traffic coming from 4 directions. This roundabout will contain a focal point feature in its center with extensive landscaping to provide a great foreground for the view of the new restaurants and shops from North Avenue. We also created a much longer on-site stacking lane for Starbucks to eliminate the backup that occasionally occurs all the way to North Avenue in the morning. The main entrance to the residential neighborhoods has been located from the central portion of the urban district adjacent to the plaza and leads directly to the community and leasing center. The location of this entrance road integrates the mixed-use nature of the site with a direct vehicle connection between the residential and the urban areas, in addition to the network of pedestrian connections that will be provided. Additional access points to the residential area are located east of Smith Road and west to Foxfield Drive. The townhomes have been redesigned from the former 3-story units and replaced with 2-story townhomes in order to widen their appeal to include an older demographic that would be discouraged by all the stairs. The townhomes will have 2 or 3 bedrooms and range from 1,400 to 1,560 square feet. They'll be attached in 4 and 6 unit buildings and positioned with front elevations on courtyards. All the townhomes will have 2-car garages. There will be sufficient room in front of the garages for an additional 2 cars to park. The conceptual plan does not show most of the sidewalks that will be provided in the next step of the approval process, but the courtyards will have sidewalks connecting to the front porches and leading to the sidewalks along the streets. Guest parking will be available along one side of the street where it doesn't conflict with garages, in addition to the spaces in front of garages. The residences that are on the main street throughout the townhome neighborhood have been positioned so that no garage doors will face this street. We've provided renderings of townhome elevations with our submittal. The garden apartments will consist of 3-story walk-up buildings with all of the latest amenities and features. A variety of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments will be available. Apartments on the first floor will have patios outside their units. Apartments on the second and third floors will have balconies. The apartment neighborhood has been designed to provide a village streetscape along the fronts of the units with inset parallel parking stalls, sidewalks, and village-type lighting fixtures with parking lots located behind the buildings. Landscape parking islands and handicap spaces still need to be added to the plan in the next stage of the design process. We've submitted a preliminary rendering of the apartment elevation with our submittals. Large community building will be available to the residents in both the garden apartment and townhome communities. A leasing and on-site management center will be situated in the community building as well. community center is centrally located between the two apartment neighborhoods and overlooking a pond. The center will include a fitness area, meeting rooms, a lounge with kitchen and fireplace, men and women's bathrooms, a shower area, a dog wash room, and an outdoor barbecue and swimming pool. Parks and open space areas will be provided adjacent to the community building as well, along with a playground. Now, once we have support from the city for the concept plan, a traffic study will be commissioned for the project. The site currently has 4 signalized intersections with the perimeter roads, which should be adequate, but any necessary traffic improvements will be determined by the traffic study. The primary traffic circulation pattern within the development is a loop from the roundabout through the urban district past Von Mar, past the plaza and the restaurants, past the cinema, then turning and going past the hotel in Cooper's Hawk and back to the roundabout. There are 4 access points to and from this loop, to the south, the west, and the east. It's our goal to discourage the traffic through the townhome neighborhood. We have designed the street pattern with this in mind. We know from experience that townhome residents want a quiet neighborhood with a minimum amount of traffic. We are concerned about cut-through traffic from Foxfield Drive to Walmart. Previous owners tell us this was a big problem. It's far easier for the neighborhoods north of this site to cut through our residential area than to negotiate 5 signalized intersections and 3 left turns by going around on Kirk Road and North Avenue. If they have to cut through the site, at least we can direct them through the urban district, where they might be tempted to do a little impulse shopping or dining, maybe stop at food trucks. Other refinements to the concept plan will be developed at the next stage. We'll be exploring the amount of stormwater detention needed for the new plan to see if we can make some aesthetic modifications to the detention ponds. An extensive network of sidewalks and pedestrian paths will tie all components of the site together in order to create a true mixed-use development that we believe will provide a revitalized sense of place with all of the proposed elements working in a synergistic way. Now, I want to close by stating that in order for us to proceed with this development of the Charlestown Mall, we need to obtain a strong level of support from this board tonight. The next steps in the approval process are very expensive, and without support for the concept plan before you, we're not willing to proceed. To date, we have not received the support we need to proceed from either the city administration or from the Planning Commission. Despite amending the plan to incorporate most of the concerns and suggestions that we were provided. While we have no objection to continue working with the city to refine and improve the concept plan, we have no interest in some of the suggestions that have been proposed to us for redevelopment of the mall. Von Mar and the cinema, occupying 35 to 40% of the site, constrain what is possible, and pursuing plans that are experimental or failing elsewhere makes no sense for us or the city. At best, this is a difficult, extraordinarily expensive project, and without everyone pulling in the same direction, it has no chance of success. So thank you for your hopefully favorable consideration of the conceptual redevelopment plan for Charlestown Mall.
Thank you, Manny, for the presentation. Thank you, S.R. Jacobson, as well as Stern. I know you've been to 2 Planning Commission meetings. We appreciate that. I'm going to now open this up to questions from the commission so that you can get some feedback that you guys are in search of. So with that, I'm going to start off with Alderman Bessner.
Okay, thank you. Hi, going back to Manny, when you were up there making your presentation, towards the end of the presentation, you know, this is where my question came up prior to you saying that, but you had stated that folks in townhomes do not want traffic cutting through, they want a quiet environment, et cetera. Well, prior to even you getting to that point, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, but one of the first things I learned on the St. Charles Planning Commission was buffering. And buffering in the sense of, going to my question, why are the apartments, the garden apartments, all the way on the east side and not surrounding, you know, the movie theater? I understand that we have a movie theater. I understand that we have a successful Von Mar there that's doing well. But what's the rationale for having two-story townhomes surrounding the movie theater when there's possibly an opportunity, or was there a thought process in not putting the garden apartments over there? That's my first question.
You mean switching the garden apartments with the townhomes?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out what your rationale was for not doing that originally.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we have the two attractive detention ponds, very attractive detention ponds that are located in that area that we believe are a much better setting for the townhomes than they are for the garden apartments. And we looked at, when we were originally designing this, we looked at where they seemed to work better, and we came to the conclusion that they work better on the western portion than they work on the eastern portion. We were somewhat constrained by the road coming in from Smith Avenue and by the fact that there's a facility there that we don't own, and in terms of the layouts. And as I say, we really need to get, right now we show, I think, 560 units. We're going to wind up with less. We have to put in that fire lane, we have to put in sidewalks, and we have to put in handicap spaces and whatnot. But it's critical for us to get the 500 units, and the layouts just did not work very well with the garden apartments being that portion, and this was the best layout that we thought that could get us the 500 units and accomplish the settings that we wanted to accomplish with the townhomes, et cetera.
And then I didn't see it in the packet, and if I missed it, I apologize, but I didn't see it in there in regards to any kind of images. You did show what it would take to landscape to kind of hide that loading dock from Von Mar.
Right.
But what do you have planned to, or do you have anything planned to, kind of landscape that movie theater perimeter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going to have an extensive landscape plan for every component of the site. So we have not gotten anywhere, to that level yet. That would be developed when we have our landscape architects involved. We didn't really have them involved in this plan. We had our planner involved. So we see that as being a little further down the road.
Okay. And then the plaza itself, again, I'm not trying to get you to change everything, but my concern there is, or question would be, why couldn't that plaza be a little bit more southeast, basically to the east of Von Mar, where it seems like there's more of a circular area for something along what you're designing?
Well, the plaza, we wanted to really be a focal point from everywhere along that urban entertainment, dining, restaurant corridor. So we wanted to be able to see it when you were, from the cinema and also from the roundabout. So anywhere on that corridor, you're kind of, that's the focal point. And if you look at, for example, Hawthorne Mall, what they're doing there, you'll see that there's a focal point. They have focal points that usually are kind of at the end of the entrance corridor so that you're focused on that. If we move it more to the east, then it's not as central to the residents. We wanted that also to be central so that it's going to pull people out of the townhomes and out of the apartments and encourage them to come into the commercial areas of the site. That just seemed like the best place for it, and what we really wanted to see. What we may do, and there was a suggestion made at the Planning Commission, which was actually a great suggestion, we hadn't thought of it before, is why don't you put the food trucks on the plaza, and then maybe relocate that road a little bit so that, you've got even another reason to hang around the plaza. You'll have food trucks and the amphitheater and an ice cream stand and, whatnot, and everything else that we have. So, that's something that we could look at tweaking to see whether, but I think where we have the plaza, and we wanted it to be off of the cinema, because we just kind of felt like that it has an entertainment kind of a feel. And by the way, it's not going to look the way it looks here. It's going to be different. There's going to be areas where we have raised landscape beds, and all around those raised beds, we see that you'd be able to sit, so that they would be raised just enough so that you have seating all the way around the perimeter. So it would be a mixture of landscaped areas and hardscape areas.
So a much broader landscape plan, or a much more detailed landscape plan, is still coming, is what you're saying?
Well, on the next stage, in a preliminary plan, yeah, this is just conceptual. You know, we need to get kind of the general bones of the thing set, and then we can start to really focus on developing. This is a huge site, it's 82 acres, you know, so then we can focus on developing different portions of the site and really designing those with a lot of thought.
Okay, yeah, because the only other thing I would suggest or state difference would be, you know, I see how there's a lot of green space more in the northwest quadrant, but, you know, the rest of it, I don't want to say it's all parking, but there's a lot of open hard space as well.
We did put most of the green space around the townhomes. That's where I think it's kind of needed. There in the community center, the community center is going to be shared by both. It's kind of hard to put the green space around the apartments to get the yield that we need. But, you know, we're going to take another look and see if we can improve a little bit on that into the next stage.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, if I could interject one point real quick.
Yeah.
For clarification from something Alderman Besner was asking. Right now, it does show a split between townhomes and garden apartments. I just want to make it clear, because I know I received a couple questions that both the townhouse and the garden apartments are all rental units, and to clarify that about the
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
I said that all the garden apartments and the townhouses are all rental units. Yes, because that question came to me, so I just wanted to make sure that the council members were
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wirball, go ahead.
Okay. I have a lot of questions, so I'll start out and then I'll. So first of all, are you willing to? I like what you have going on with the townhouses, a lot of green space, and I like the way that's laid out. Are you willing to continue that into where the garden apartments are at? That same kind of concept with the green space, because it looks very residential to me, and I like that. I like the way that looks, the townhouses, and the apartments seem a little industrial. I know you're trying with the green around it, but is that something you're willing to do?
Not if it means that we have a yield of less than 500 units, because then our numbers don't work.
But what if you get 500 units by doing that? Could you do that and get 500 units? Are you open to the suggestion, I guess?
Sure, but I
Okay.
don't know, you know, of any way that we can really do that, and it's going to be a lot different. We need sufficient parking, and right now we're about 1.77 per unit, which is less than we usually like to see, but it's about the right mix that the ordinance requires for the types of unit mix. So, I mean, everything is, if you do parking, more green space, you're going to be either taking away from parking lots or buildings, and if you take away from parking lots, then you can't have as many buildings, then you can't have as many units. So, you know, it isn't just a green site. So we're working with this, everything that we can to try to redevelop this site in a way that makes financial sense, in a way that we can get it financed, in a way that our pro formas will work. So kind of the magic is 500 units. When you go below 500 units, it starts to fall apart financially. So I don't know if we can accomplish what you're asking and still keep 500 units.
Okay, because I just like the way that flows. It looks very residential.
Right.
I don't necessarily know if you need that much green space going down into that other quadrant, but if you can make that work, I think that would look really nice, just the way it flows. Have you considered making maybe a portion of this like an 55 and older active community? Has that ever been discussed, or is that?
It's not something that we're willing to do. They're age restricted, and we have encountered this many times on other projects. Age restricting is a whole different ballgame. It's more difficult to get financed because if the market ever changes, et cetera. And we're willing to age target at times, and we did a project in Naperville that was all ranch apartments, and we did not age restrict it, but we age targeted. And when you age target, you don't get, everybody over 55, but you get the vast majority. I don't think that would work here, because these aren't really over 55 units. They're 2 stories. For over 55, you pretty much have to have ranches.
Okay.
They're not ranches, and if we were to do ranches, we would lose 150 units.
I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but on some of the drawings, would you be willing to put some ranches on the end of some of the townhouses, or is that something you're not open to?
No, I don't think that would work.
Scott Jacobson, 32400 Telegraph with Manny. So what we did initially, our plan was 3-story. And if you go down the Orland Park, you'll see a 3-story product. We felt it was too severe for the site, especially with the townhouses behind us. And so this product was also to attract another potential renter for us. And that's someone that won't walk 3 places there, but you got your garage on the first floor, your first floor living, kitchen, great room, and the bedrooms up. So we think that we kind of soften, our approach, and we get a wider audience with this product type. And I think you will get some people that are older than they and walk up to go to bed. That's no big deal.
Right.
So that was we put a lot of thought into that when we revised it.
Okay.
Just soft the look.
So for you to meet your revenue targets, you need a certain number of apartments. Is that what it is, or is it?
Yes, well, we need the revenue to be able to generate the taxes. The number of units need to generate the taxes that will accommodate paying $35 million in rent in redevelopment costs, which we wouldn't have if this were a greenfield site. So that's kind of when you do all of the pro formas, et cetera, and you see, well, how much tax do we have to generate? We have to generate this much tax. What's it going to take to generate that much tax? It's going to take 500 residential units.
Okay. So you are open to carrying that townhouse concept if you can get 500 units down into that east quadrant?
I don't see any way to do it, but I
guess I'm trying to understand why.
I just think it has more, because the apartments, just visually looking at and talking to my constituents, it looks a little industrial. So I talk to them and they're like, they like, as soon as their eyes go right to the townhouses, they like that. They like the way it flows, the way it blends. And just me looking at it, I can just see that carrying through, and I would be very interested to see what that would look like if that's a possibility.
I mean, it will hurt the density. I don't think it's possible. But what we can do is if we get the support and get into the next phase, we could show you what we've developed in some of our other sites. What we found is contemporary design today. Young people want it. They're paying a premium for it. We've had a couple extra sites where we've gotten greater absorption than we ever saw before because younger people want something fresh. They don't want the house that I lived in or maybe you lived in. So the fresh look, a little more contemporary, is really important for us. And we can show pictures of Uptown Square, what we did there, which, looks super.
Right. And it doesn't look
it's more industrial, more geometric.
Okay.
But nice quality, large detail and bushes. So I think if we get the support, we'd be happy to work with you on that to make sure that something that's attractive. We understand it's got to be attractive.
Okay. And then, absolutely.
Alderman Petrillo, go ahead. We'll circle back if we need to.
Okay. Thank you.
So I understand this is concept, so we're talking high level, and thank you for incorporating. I've attended at least one of those planning commission meetings, and this is different, of course, than the first one, so I appreciate that. I get why there's more green in the northwest. Those townhomes, I mean, you have garages, right? So you need less space for parking, so it's incorporated into the structure. In terms of a couple of things here that you want to hear about, I'll be honest. I think it's fine. I mean, I think the use is fine. It is. You guys know how to do your business, and it looks nice. I think the only thing in terms of the architecture and the building layout is to the point of my colleagues over here. There to me is a pretty. There's a line of demarcation between that you can visually see. If there's any way to blend, and I'm not even going to get into the weeds on how to do that, maybe blend those areas together while maintaining your density. I guess that would just be some feedback I have. The line of apartments, I mean, it's rather visually, it's just a long line of apartments. Maybe they can be broken up or something of that nature. That's some feedback I would give. I support the TIF concept. If you're and our staff are comfortable with that. I trust them. You know, I think we've been pretty clear what type of TIF we want, and you're working with us. So again, the use is fine. I think it fits with the comprehensive plan. Density, I get it economically why you need that, and again, the breakdown, I think if there's some sort of blending, if that makes sense, I would go for that too. These food trucks, are they going to be there the whole year? I apologize, because you had mentioned you're like, they come and visit the food trucks. Okay, good. Because I was like, I don't even know if we can have food trucks all year round, but, so that's great. The plaza looks fine as well. But, you know, I know the tree discussion is going to come later, so we'll leave that to them. So, thank you.
Good. Go ahead, Mr. Weston.
All right. I mean, there's some things that I'm curious about, and I definitely am listening to you. And one thing that I appreciate is it's a challenging fight, and we all have the same goals. And I heard that really loud and clear. I want you to be very successful with this. You need to be successful with it. There's so many things in just the layout of the site that I see. Like even just, you know, I have a big background in retail, and on Von Mar, you said they're right over by the public space is where you have to put the loading dock and all that. And I'm even looking at that being tight. I'm like, that's tight. That's tight. It's a really challenging spot. And I keep on hearing it's expensive. It's risky. It's risky for us as well. You know, and I feel all that. So, I mean, really to hit to the point before talking about the details, you're asking for a firm commitment and support. I can see how challenging it is and how much risk you have to take on to do it the way that we're talking about. And at this point, you know, like I don't see the blend of you getting everything that you need. St.Charles, and with promises that we made to the residents, and they have them. So, like at this point, I have so many questions. I just want to be really clear that we've asked for some changes in this and to do the PUD, and I still see so much risk, and I have so many questions that at this point, if you're saying like all in, at this point, I still have to be clear. Right now, I see a lot of risk for me to feel that, even though I've seen how far you've come, that the TIF is working the right way, that it's pay as you go, you know, and I understand those. So that's really the moment of the comments that I have right now, and I can understand and feel how challenging this site that it is to deal with.
What kind of changes are you looking for?
The density numbers look tough. You know, just the flow through the site. There's a lot of risks. I mean, even taking a look at, you know, like I said, a better understanding of where the, you know, how Von Mar is going to operate successfully. When I'm taking a look at just even understanding the type of space that they're going to need, and I want to see you have a good, marketable, successful project when you get through. I mean, just a lot of the density and the flow that you say you're still working with. Like I see a plan that has some of the same concerns as the plan that we had before. So to go back through all of it, I'm yes for my feedback, and I'm seeing, you know, a plan that I don't think meets enough of your needs and the city's needs for me to say that I'm 100% like absolutely this looks really close to a picture that's going to work. You know, so to get into all the details, but I'll leave comments to the rest of my colleagues as well.
Okay, we appreciate that, but I did want to have one question. We're puzzled, and we've gotten this question about density before. Oh, maybe there's too much density. And we don't quite understand, I guess, why that concern is coming up. In Prairie Center, the city approved 670 units on 27 acres. We have, let's say, 530 units on 82 acres. It's a fraction of the density that was approved for Prairie Center. So we're not sure why this density issue is coming up.
Our city administrator would like to comment.
And I'm sorry, it wasn't a comment about specifically the density, but I've heard the statement made a couple times now about the TIF and that we're on the same page with the TIF. I just want to make it clear that we've stated that the only acceptable TIF mechanism we would do is pay as you go, which we've communicated to the group. We have not gotten beyond that detail yet. So it's a lot to say that we've worked out the details of the TIF when we're not quite to that point yet. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Noted. Thank you.
I can say from my perspective, because it's still on me, you know, just taking a look at the responsibility that I have the city based on the comprehensive plan and how, and some of the changes, significant changes that we're looking, and, you know, the texture of the surrounding area. I mean, we have those responsibilities to consider. Yeah, I wasn't an alderman at the time when you're talking about Prairie Town Center. that's a reasonable concern. I can tell you what I'm looking at right now, and I get the question that you have as well. But I mean, with all of it, I definitely hear about the risk that you take on a complex project like this. But we're also looking at a situation where we've been trying to do Prairie Town Center for quite some time. Quite a few revisions have come up, and that, that was incredibly challenging, continues to be challenging to this day. And there have been, a lot of things we didn't expect in coming up. And if, any project that you move forward, I want to make sure that the city could be the best partner with you as possible. So in some of it, I also feel like I'm hearing what you're saying as well. Those are my comments.
Alderman Bancroft?
So I just feel like being direct, right? So a couple things. Density is a false flag issue. If you got people jazzed on this dais about a project, that would just be a number that would be, discussed. It's not, right now it's a false flag issue. The problem you have with this plan is you have three separate quadrants. You've got a retail quadrant, you've got the townhome quadrant, and you've got the walk-up quadrant. And to me, they don't integrate. It's not walkable. It's not a true mixed-use deal, in my estimation. And I understand it may not fit your economics and your development plan, but there's no reason for someone to walk from the townhomes and be over in the three-story walk-ups. They're three separate deals. And right now, the first third of your deal, I haven't measured it, but the first third of your deal doesn't change anything from the streetscape. So I see a bunch of parking lots. I see Coopersock. I see Von Mar. I see parking lot. You haven't changed that. So what your solution was to put a bunch of stuff in between the three quadrants, in my opinion, and none of that stuff is particularly interesting to me. I mean, it's not very interesting to me that you're going to do food trucks, which aren't going to be there in the winter. It's not very interesting to me that you're doing a band shell, which probably isn't going to be used in the winter. So most of that is going to be dead space, probably for 7 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year. The plan's not interesting.
So how would you propose to change it?
I'd start over.
And do what?
So I believe that it's going to be a mixed-use deal. I believe that it's going to have a significant residential component. I believe that there's going to be significant demolition of the mall. I don't believe that you have to divide it up the way you have. I don't believe that you have to, I'm going to go at your word that you have to have Von Mar and that you have to have the movie theater. I mean, Von Mar's a staple to the community, so I guess I'll go with that. But, I mean, people buy and sell real estate all the time. I mean, to make this site work, you had to buy the mall. You had to buy out the movie theater. You buy out the movie theater, if that makes it better. I don't know. I'm not the one who's commissioning a plan here. I would go out and have a planner and say, I want someone who's going to be able to walk from one corner to the other, have something to do, have something interesting. I want to change the streetscape along Route 64 so it's interesting when people are coming into town. Right now, you haven't changed anything. My view.
Alderman Bancroft?
Manny, you mentioned at the close of your opening that there's some obstacles or things that you guys are not interested in pursuing or deal breakers. But you didn't elaborate what those were. Can you talk in more detail?
Sure. Some of the suggestions that were made that we are not willing to do, building the residential over the retail, that has failed in almost every place that has been tried. Intermixing the townhome and the garden apartment buildings. We want those to be separate neighborhoods. We're not into experimentation. We know that those work. We have done that and are doing that right now in Orland Park with tremendous success. Converting the existing mall building to apartments. We're not interested in doing that. Developing another large entertainment venue. We're not interested in doing that either. It's been suggested that we create an 11-acre park. We don't have the room to create an 11-acre park. The parking is tight as it is. Reducing the residential density below what we feel is required to make this project work financially and necessary for the TIF. Another suggestion was constructing a ring road through the residential neighborhoods. We're not interested in putting that kind of traffic through the residential neighborhoods. It's been suggested to us that perhaps we should build a Topgolf there. Topgolf needs 12 acres and has 150-foot high netting all the way around it. So those are some of the suggestions that we, maybe some developer might be willing to do that.
Right.
We would not, and we don't believe any of those would be successful.
Why not? I'm just curious, because you...
Why won't they be successful? Because they failed elsewhere, and because some of them don't make any sense at all. I mean, why would you put 150-foot high netting next to a residential area? It's as tall as a 15-story building with a top off. They wouldn't go here anyway, under any circumstances. This is not the kind of site that they would go on.
Okay. What's the average price per unit?
The what?
The average unit price for the apartments? For the rentals? No, I'm sorry, to rent. So we're talking about target market and
$2,700 a month.
Okay. That, call me crazy, that seems expensive to me, and the units look beautiful. I'm just curious about the demographic that we're targeting. You know, we have to be above how many units to make this profitable, to make the numbers work. It's been many, many years since I rented an apartment, but that was more than my first mortgage, and I lived, you know, about a block and a half from this location. So market studies and, you know, can we build this? Can we do it? There's a crowd, but that price point, this type of project, being able to bring in the clientele that we think that are going to fill in there, you're talking about almost a rental of $3,000 a month. That's more than a lot of the mortgages in that surrounding neighborhood. To me, again, I'm not the expert. I haven't done the market studies, but we don't have an expressway that's close. You know, I understand that we're redoing Pheasant Run, but almost $3,000 for a rental apartment seems like, is that realistic?
That's what we're getting right now in Orland Park in a large development of 294 units. We're leasing them 4 or 5 months before we can actually deliver the units. So in other words, they're leasing far faster than we could build them, and these are reservations with deposits. And your demographics are actually better than they are in Orland Park. So we have no doubt that we can get this right.
Yeah, and this is what we're rent by choice.
Right.
Yeah. Continue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're seeing
the average median income of our renters is about $110,000. People are renting these not because they need to, but because they want to. And we think in this kind of we don't have the kind of an environment that's as exciting as this one is going to be. You know, there you have to get in your car to go anywhere. You know, here you won't. So we think, if anything, we're being conservative.
Okay. How long, again, tips and shovels and supply chain and all that good stuff. Best case scenario, you know, project keeps moving, you know, down the tracks. When realistically do we think that we'd actually see some of the apartment structures starting to be built?
18 months. 18 months.
And completion of all the apartment units?
It's probably a 4-year project. Completion of all the units, 4-year project.
the 4-year program.
Okay.
Everything sunshine.
So I'm assuming the expectation is that you would ask us to hold off on any other development in the surrounding area for at least 4 years now?
At least.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm not a landscaper, I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect. To me, the bigger question is the use of the space. The plan that you have here, arguing density, I used to live literally a 9-iron from the space. To think that there'd be 600 apartment units to me seems like I can't picture it until it's built and maybe it's there and, it looks great and you can't imagine when it wasn't there. To me, the larger question and the feedback I get from residents in the second ward is apartments? It's not apartments. Great. And again, that's not anything to say about the plan. I think the plan looks good. I mean, there's questions, we can move a tree and we can talk about where this street is. But more conceptually, if we're talking about a TIF, in order to make this a reality, then the city becomes a partner. If it was a green space and there's no TIF, build away. But when we're involved, the larger question being, is this repurposing and development of this space what we envision for it? Is there anything else out there? And I get that you're telling me that there's nothing else that's going to work, it's this or that's that. To me, I'm not in a place, I'm where I'm at in May when the first, proposal came by where to me, it felt like, is there something else that we can potentially look at? And if I'm the only one, perfectly fair. But the feedback that I get from residents I talk to in the second ward is not a desire or a feeling like this is something that has to be done. But the feedback that we gave you guys from a couple of months ago, I appreciate, because it definitely looks like you guys listen and you put the time into it. And, you know, where some of the commercial outlets are and things like that, I really don't have much of a concern about that. It's more of the larger idea of is this what we want to do?
Well, the last proposal for this site was made in 2017. Since then, the owners have been marketing it, and we're not aware of anyone else other than us right now that is interested in this project. There are very few companies that have the ability to finance a $125 million project and have the track record in order to get the lending. We cannot envision any other way to develop this mall other than something somewhat similar to this, to where you're going to have a lot of residential on here to afford to pay for $35 million worth of residential costs. There's no other use, correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but there's no other use that we can think of that's going to allow the massive reconstruction and redevelopment cost that has to be done. The mall's been sitting there for a long time, vacant. I don't think, and again, I don't want to speak for Von Maur, but if this thing continues to be vacant for a lot longer, you're going to lose Von Maur, and you're going to lose the cinema. And then your problems are even worse. So, you know, I don't know.
Why are our problems worse?
Because you will have two wonderful facilities that deserve to be here, that have been through some really hard times, that, you know, through allowing this blighted mall to be not developed with, you know, I don't know anybody that's coming behind us, that their businesses cannot thrive. I don't think that's fair to those businesses. So you're the only ones that can decide whether or not the city is hurt by doing nothing. But to us, that seems crazy.
Oh, he wants to, Mr. Stern wants to say something.
Hi, Daniel Stern, Larmac Stern, 38500 Woodward, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I think Manny hit it on the head. Having a true traditional department store, I think, is a big asset to the city. And if they go away, there's no way you're going to have another department store. And I do think it's a special thing to have that. I mean, it's a dying, it's kind of a dying category, but you've got kind of a specialty department store that's here that's still doing well. I think it'd be terrible to lose them.
So have you guys been in communication with the movie theater and Von Maur?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. In fact, I'm surprised. The theater was actually here at the Planning Commission meeting, and for whatever reason, the guy didn't come up. I've known the guy for 25 years. He used to be at AMC Theaters. And the theater, I think, is a big benefit. And I think the same thing with the theater. Theaters are great, but once you demolish them, I don't think we'd get another new build theater because, again, I haven't seen a new theater get built, a brand new one, ground up. I don't think it would make sense to do it. So I think it'd be a crime to lose both of them. To recreate both of them on another area of the site, we already have $35 million in extraordinary cost. You'd probably be almost doubling it. And so I think then the whole project becomes just too big for anything.
And I would submit that I don't believe your plan is a guarantee that those two succeed.
By the way, I don't disagree with you. In fact, at Evergreen Park, I rebuilt Carson's department store, and Carson's went out of business.
Yeah, so my point is that the going back and forth on your plan, which we've got other aldermen who need to get their comments on it. I don't like when the conversation turns to, well, if you don't agree with us, then you're at risk to lose these two things. We're at risk to lose those two things no matter what. That doesn't change. So I think your premise is wrong.
Well, I think that, as Manny said, the last plan was up in 2017. The active tenants that were on the site weren't much different than now. To bet that they're both going to go out of business over the next few years and then you have a cleaner slate, I wouldn't make that bet as an owner or in your shoes, because as long as you wait for them, the rest of it just sits.
Yeah, my point is that the risk of losing those two things exists pre and post discussion of this plan and pre and post implementation of this plan. Because it's going to be a standalone department store and it's going to be a standalone movie.
Yeah.
It's no different. They will operate no differently. Their parking will be no worse. You know, all of those things right now, the only thing they'll have is a few more rooftops around, which is the argument.
Well, actually, I think on that, I respectfully don't agree. We already are going to battle with them on parking because we're making their parking a lot worse. To a point that it is going to be a little bit of arm wrestling when we move the hotel over on the other portion to get some visible relief from the parking, which I think makes sense because it'll look a lot better. We took a lot of the primary parking. But if you take a dead mall anywhere in the Midwest and you look at the surrounding area up and down your street, 2 miles each way, you take a dead mall 2 miles each way, the longer that sits, the more vacancies you have, the more it looks like an area that isn't thriving. You take something that's been redeveloped, whole area looks good. The longer this sits here, the more vacancies up and down the street I think you guys are going to have.
Chairman Weber, can I make a comment? This is Mayor. Sorry. I just want the council to be aware that City Administrator and I have had conversations with Classic Cinemas and continue to, and Von Mar. Just for what it's worth, Classic Cinemas had their best weekend ever with Spider-Man this past weekend. And so they both are committed to stay. And I just want you to all know that we've had those conversations. So as of right now, I have not heard, and of course anything can happen, but we keep an open line of communication with them and we continue to reach out just to make sure that things are going okay for them. So for what it's worth. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. I'm going to move along to Alderman Leitner. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm so glad that the team is here. I mean, that speaks volumes, to me anyway. It really does. It speaks to your commitment, and it's also, more importantly, as I saw at Plan Commission, it spoke to your desire to not assume, not to guess, but to get the answers from the experts. So I appreciate that. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Second Ward Alderman Rita Pay Leitner, and I'm the one for which it's been said she'll vote yes no matter what. Besides being incredibly insulting, I can assure you that's just not true. But I'll tell you what is true. I don't have the luxury of looking at this redevelopment with fresh eyes, like some of my colleagues here. I've been there, done that. Instead of the implied rainbows and unicorns view of this project, I'm weather-worn. I've seen it. I've seen and heard so many options attempted, discussed, and ultimately not come to fruition. What I have learned through the years is what is needed for a successful project is experienced developers like you gentlemen, a TIF, access to patient money, flexibility, a vision, and most importantly, a partnership we can count on. And everything I've seen or heard, I believe that to be true. So thank you for that. I've read up on you gentlemen. You've supplied a lot of information in the packet, and I see you are firms and developers with vast experience and knowledge. I would be not one to second guess any of it. I, for one, think we're lucky to have such a team even consider this project. Never mind continue through what has appeared, and you mentioned, an uphill battle. I do. I really think that the fact that you're giving this a second glance is huge, and I appreciate it. Is this a dream come true plan? Maybe not, but this is a good plan. It presents workable options considering the very realistic challenges this site presents, which you've been more than clear on, our staff has been more than clear on. We've seen it. Okay, that being said, yes, I would support a project, and to quote the question, I would support a project in substantially this form with TIF assistance. Regarding the plan itself, I have a few comments. Some have already been touched on by my colleagues, but I'm going to go ahead with just a couple. First off, I love the public amenity piece. I like its location. I like all the components. As my colleagues will attest to, throw in a splash park and my dreams will have come true. The site layout, I could appreciate the added challenge of working around the existing businesses, especially during construction, you know, moving forward, that will be tough. I like the loading dock resolution. I know that was a tough one. And I think I'm calling it right, you call it the urban district, right? Your little, yeah. I like that idea. I like that there's been consideration given to, despite comments up here, but I appreciate consideration given to the connectivity, both pedestrian and auto. I think that, you know, considering all that's going on. For the residential component, my questions were asked and answered down the dais, and you guys kind of like drew your line in the sand on some of it, so I concede. But what hasn't been mentioned yet, and as a 10-year member of the Housing Commission, I'm hoping you're giving serious consideration to providing at least a few affordable units. Just want to put that out there. I think that's important. As far as casting the vision for St. Charles, that's a big part of our vision. I like the change that you had the garages in the back. You know, it was suggested, I think, by one of our plan commissioners to go look at a neighborhood, you know, the existing neighborhood where that's the case, and I think it works, it looks good. I wish there was more of a blending, but I hear you, I get it. You need to get those units in to reach your numbers. All that to say, I very much look forward to, with all my fingers and toes crossed and prayers said, to you moving forward, and I look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Bala?
Once again, thanks for being here tonight. I guess the reason I noticed the drawing was because I had the previous one up. I was looking at this today, and the first committee said there was too many units, and it actually went up from 532 units to 560 units.
We'll go back down.
So I thought that was interesting that we went up instead of down. But I bring up Pheasant Trails too. You're well aware of that development. The outer ring, let's call it. I believe there's 48 standalone buildings in that outer ring with 192 residences, which is not, this is not your ring. This is Pheasant Trails.
Oh, Pheasant Trails.
Pheasant Trails. The outer ring, there's 48 buildings with roughly 192 units. I think it fits roughly, if you Google Earth it, it's roughly your size. So you've got 50 buildings versus 48, but you've got 500 residences versus 192. I think that's where the density comes in that some of my colleagues have talked about tonight. There's a huge number of people in a smaller area than Pheasant Trails has currently right now on the same basic square footage. That's my first comment about density. And then the parks, there is one park, there's a small one here. There's just not enough green space. You got 500 units with, let's say, 300 kids, maybe 250 kids. There's no parks. I mean, you're gonna have parks on top, kids on top of each other in the park. And I'll sentiment with one of my other colleagues said, kind of boring. I mean, what I heard in the last meeting was the restaurants and all that will be the last thing to be built, if I'm not mistaken, or it's not a priority until there's a tenant. Correct? That's right. Okay, but anyway, but even so, they're jammed in here in the front. There's no movement. There's going to be no parking. The parking at Cooper's Hawk that you say you expanded looks like the existing spot that they park in. If you move the road over for one more lane of parking, that's probably only 25 more parking spots. There's easily 100 cars that park where your hotel's at now. So there's a huge parking issue down in that corner already, and you could drive by there tonight. There's a huge parking issue right there. I don't know, there's nothing special about it. I understand you have to have 500 units. I'm not asking you to change 500 units. It's a dollars game. There's a dollar game. I'm just saying it's very dense, and there's nothing really exciting about it. I mean, the outdoor plaza area probably gets used once in a while, to be honest with you. I just don't see it being used. It's not a major focal point between a cinema and a back of a Bar Mar that's 2 stories high.
Just, again, I'm not trying to be what would you consider to be exciting? What use that we haven't proposed would you consider to be an exciting use?
I'm new on this board. I'll be first one to say this is the first one of these I've sat through. I did not sit through the 2017, so wasn't involved in that as much. It just seems like what my colleague says, the Von Maur and the cinema have you landlocked by 35%. And that's a big problem for everyone. And I don't see how you put this many units with those two tenants in there to make it look good from our standpoint without people on top of people and 250 kids playing in a 20 by 20 park.
Well, I don't believe we'll have 250 kids. Based on our experience, there will be very few kids in the apartments, and there are not going to be many kids in the townhomes either. We've built this product before. We have it in different places, and we know what the ordinance says, but it's a theoretical number of children that are produced by a certain type of a number of bedrooms, and in our experience, that is way overestimated.
What would your estimate be for kids under 18?
I haven't calculated that, but what would you think that we have on here? Yeah, under 100. And you don't get them in the right. You don't get them. And you don't get them in townhomes. Maybe someone sells their house, wants to take a school district, they can lose the future. You see that. But for years, it's not happening. And what we found is that what residents want, particularly the apartment residents, is they want a small green space that's very close by, primarily because they have dogs. They don't necessarily care about having a large park that's an eighth of a mile away. You know, that's not what they use. What they'll use is that small park right next to the building a couple times a day. That's what they want. And I know that some of this may look industrial when you put it on a plan like this, but when we build it, because we build these with this kind of spacing in the parking lots behind and the streetscape in front, it doesn't come out that way at all. It feels like a village.
It's exactly what Pheasant Trails is. You know, that development's exactly like your townhomes, basically.
I haven't seen it, but I'll go take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was mentioned last meeting. That's why everybody said Pheasant Trails last meeting. So.
Well, what was? Oh, I don't know.
Pheasant Run Trail.
Oh, yeah, somebody did.
Pheasant Run Trails. Okay. And last question I have for you real quick, maybe more of a question for staff. Do we know what our current tax basis is for this property? You mentioned 2.5 million in your presentation.
Right.
Would be future. Do you know what we're currently at right now, or is that a number available?
We don't have current data pulled on that. That's something that would be part of the financial analysis of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now realize that Von Maur and the cinema, whatever taxes they're paying right now, they'll continue to pay. Actually, they'll probably pay a little bit more because we think their business will increase. So all of those taxes that are going to, and they're not going to be part of the TIF, you know. So right now, all of the areas that are going to be redeveloped, there's like nothing there. So you're not getting any taxes from that. So we figure somewhere the taxes will be somewhere around $5,000 a unit based on our tax study that we do. So times 500 units. So that's all new taxes. That's all new taxes to the city. So, you know, the way a TIF works is you take a percentage of that, 40%, whatever, and then you apply that as a credit towards, you know, payment. Actually, those taxes still need to be paid, but that 40% goes towards the loan for the for the demolition. It won't be. We're hoping it'll be 35 million with interest, but the demolition cost will probably be around 30 million.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Silconis?
Thank you. I am okay with the basic land use. Personally, I wish it was all retail. I understand it. Not going to happen. I get that. It just does not excite me. I mean, the density, okay, that's fine. I understand the dollar amounts, but there's nothing that really strikes that, hey, this is a great project, okay? You want honest, I'm just giving my honest opinion. The land use, to do it with the buildings, I understand it's going to be a tough situation, but it doesn't excite me, at least in this form. Then I guess my next question is, talking about the TIF, then you're okay with the pay-as-you-go TIF?
Yes,
You're okay with that?
yes.
Thank you. I wanted this clarification. And I guess the other question is, you stated that you don't want us to approve any more developments if you do this on Smith Road. Is that your contention? Well, I'm just...
What we're saying is, why would you annex property that isn't in the city now when you have a huge problem to solve? And instead of you're making it a lot more difficult to solve that problem by bringing in property that isn't here in the city now that competes. So it doesn't make any sense to us. I mean, someday if things work out and there's enough of a market for everybody, we have a couple market studies. You have produced one. Apparently, they produced one, and all of these are done by very competitive, by very highly regarded firms, and they're in conflict. So we have to, at the very least, it's not going to help. We know it's not going to help, because it'll be competition. We're going to be stealing potential renters from each other. But your market study took a general approach that, hey, this is a great area, there's room for everybody, it's wonderful, come on in. Our market study did it much more precisely. They said, here's been the historic capture ratio for St. Charles in this area, et cetera, and projecting that there will be actually a very small oversupply with just our units. So, but the biggest factor here is we got to get this thing financed, and the lenders heavily depend on a market study before they will before they'll give you financing. And the kind of market study that they look at is the kind that we did with John Burns. Okay, they're looking at not a happy talk, which, we used IRR many times. It's a happy talk market study. Okay, they use the precise market study with industry accepted formulas, and that's our market study. So what we're saying is, if you go ahead and annex the Springs for property that isn't even in your city, you may make it, and we don't know for sure, but you may make it impossible for us to get this project financed and solve this huge problem. The other thing that's a little frustrating, it's really frustrating to us, is we have heard over and over, well, it's not exciting. And we keep saying, what will make it exciting? And we have not gotten anybody to answer that question. What will make it exciting? If you don't think this is exciting, tell us what's exciting.
Not being apartments.
Pardon?
Not being apartments. I mean, I think
That's not an answer.
You asked for an answer. Well, hang on a second. You've asked for an answer. Here's the problem we keep running into, is what do you want us, what do you want it to be? The reality is the feedback that we get from people at times is, apartments, it's not about the concept necessarily being like, wow, it's a terrible plan. Like, actually, the development looks beautiful in a lot of ways, and being constructed and landlocked in the way that you are, you keep asking us for what else would you want? The biggest feedback that we get at times, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but is apartments, and, to my colleague down the road, it's apartments. You're not going to get people jumping out of bed going, we need 2,000 more apartments. That's the challenge.
Well, the entertainment restaurant district that we're providing is all of the excitement that we can think of. You're telling us what you don't want. You're not telling us what you do want.
The movie theater and Von Maur are already there. The retail outlets are probably going to be what? A Verizon store, an AT&T store. I mean, this commercial stuff. Like, it's not going to be, a cityscape. It's not going to be something that. So I get the challenges you guys are in, and the reality of trying to make the units work and put all this in. It's a good plan. It's a good idea. I think just conceptually, is this the best use of the space for the majority of people that are being asked that question? And if you're frustrated because you feel like the answer you keep coming back to is, well, what else do you want us to put in there? I don't know. I'm not a developer, but I can speak for the residents I speak to, and it's not, I'm looking for 600 apartments. Again.
Alderman Bancroft?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian Vermel.
So you're asking what's exciting. So I have something for you, what I think is kind of cool. But
okay.
So there's a website called artspace.org, and it's kind of like a live work type thing for artists and things like that. And it's they have one in Elgin. It's called Elgin Art Space Lofts, and you can live there. You can rent, and it's primarily for artists and things like that. And now I'm not asking for all of this to be like that. Maybe one building or something like that. but that would be something cool in this type of urban type thing that you're trying to create here, is just kind of, it gets a little creative with the arts and culture in the community. Something to think about. I don't know if that's something.
It's feedback, right? This is about feedback, right?
Right.
When we left the planning commission that night, we kind of switched to that. So one of the comments were, you really do. Again, and it's a challenge for us. 35 to 40% seems a lot, and it's an odd angle. I mean, this is a real challenge. I went out there today, slipped it in my head, but, so, I don't know if I'm talking straight or not. But, I don't have to tell you guys, you get an 800,000 square foot building that's got to be taken down, cleaned up. It's a big, big challenge, and, you know, and then we said, okay, wait, maybe that, because I had heard some comments, well, I want, one of the architects said, you know, we want a vertical building. Well, that's great, but, 80 acres. Let's say 300 units here. There's not enough retail to put on the rest of the foot. What do you do with it? So it's got to be more of a horizontal type development. I mean, I walked away and said, okay, let's forget this. Okay, what if we put a wrap building in here? I don't know that you get the rents, but what do you do with the rest of it? Leave it weeds the field? I mean, what do you do with it? You can't get it leased up. There's no retailers coming to take the rest of that land. So I know, you know, from your perspective, you want something special here. Hopefully we create that with what we're showing you here. There's a lot more detail. Your questions about, you know, landscape and those types of things. We can address those. We'll work with the city. But I think we need acknowledgement that it is the challenge, and I haven't heard any other solutions. We've worked hard and long, spent a lot of time, effort, money, taking a look at this. We want to be in this community. We love St. Charles. I mean, we're a great community. We think there's a great opportunity for us to come in and build and develop something successful that we and the community can be really proud of. And, you know, we'll work with you, but to change we're just locked. We just got too many strange things with what's in place right now. I mean, we don't have the contracts to move the other two uses out. I mean, it's not ours, it's the current owner. We have no rights, and he's not going to do anything with them. So it's just very, very difficult, and love to be here. You know, the question about, you know, I think Manny put it succinctly about, you know, a competitor. We don't mind competitors, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge to get. I think if someone else is coming in with 350 units, a bank's going to look at, wait, you know, 800 units here at one time or within a couple of years. I just think it's going to be difficult. We'd love to be here. We'd love to work with you guys. And I think we can come up with something that everybody's proud of. We're just looking for your support.
Yeah.
And we're happy to work with you.
Yep.
Alderman Bancroft?
Well, I think it's unfair for you to say that you didn't get, you know, feedback or what we want. I mean, I told you, there's no reason right now. What my main objection, personal, not to everybody on this council, is I don't like the three quadrants. I don't think it creates a neighborhood. I didn't want three neighborhoods in this site. I don't think it works. I really don't think, in my opinion, it's a walkable mixed-use site. I think what you did was you responded to some of the criticisms that you got in your first meeting by putting the stuff in the middle that, to me, doesn't work. It's that simple. Now, I think it's unfair for you to stand there and say to this body, well, then what do you want? Well, we're not professional planners, and that's not our job. You know, somebody's got to present something that gets people jazzed, and you've heard it now from multiple people on here what the biggest issue is. So either it's going to work for you or it's not. But I think that there's no question that this council would support some sort of incentive for the solution of this problem. I think there's no question that some solution to this problem is going to involve a significant residential component, probably from an economic standpoint. And I think, you know, it's really up to you guys to present something that gets people jazzed about it. My read of this council is you didn't, but I don't want to put words in people's mouths, so.
Go ahead, Rita.
Right about the fourth time I heard, not exciting, I'm not kidding you, my watch gave me a high heart rate alert. Because I feel you. I don't understand what that means. But we were given a plan and you wanted input on it. I did not see that it is, like you said, the developers aren't lining up the door, okay, if we don't like this one, we'll move on to the next one. No, I've been here long enough to know that that's not going to happen, that we need somebody with your experience, with your, deep pockets or whatever. We need that to complete this project. Your experts came up with a little tweaking here or there with this plan. And so then when I hear my colleagues say, it doesn't excite me, it doesn't jazz me, it doesn't, I too am asking the question, what then? If we concede that it has to have a financial piece, I mean, I agree with Alderman Bancroft in that I came in hoping that we could hear about it being more blendy, more apartments mixed in with townhomes or whatever, and doing that. And I heard your explanation. It seemed feasible. So, okay, I'm conceding that. But we have a plan before us that I'm not sure anybody really, except for a handful, commented on it, on the specifics of the plan, just generally speaking. And so that's why, not exciting, no, yeah, hello, we'll all say apartments aren't exciting. But I'll tell you what's not exciting is having to go to the citizens and say, well, we blew it again. Here you go. You're looking at your empty mall for another 10 years. That is not exciting. That will make my heart rate go up again. So I understand your confusion. I share it. I'm not sure what it's not that exciting means. So I don't get it.
Alderman Lansdowne.
A couple of perspectives, because you asked this question, I want to share my thoughts. You're taking a look at a site where we built one of the last regional malls that got built in Chicago. Shouldn't have been built. We don't have population density anywhere within the circle going to the east of us. I've heard rumors about people thinking that there was going to be an outer ring to 355. So we created this problem, and a problem was created. But, my perspective on this is, I want to make sure that we don't take a bad situation and make it worse. You yourself talked about how challenging this is. And then you brought up the old mall on the west side of town and the plan that's there that isn't going anywhere, that hasn't been developed, that has been incredibly problematic. So I'm incredibly authentically saying to you, I want to look out for you. I want to make sure that this is very successful and you're successful there. But we don't own this property. We're up here, as stewards of the community. The community behind it, we have to take plans with them and sell a good idea that sometimes we're in this middle position to see, like, this is good for you, this is good for them, this is good for everybody. But, we don't have a plan, because choice of words one time, I'm sure it was a mistake. For the people who are looking to annex into St. Charles, that's not our plan, those aren't our numbers either. This isn't our property. There is a problem here that was given to us by posterity, that was given to us by our forefathers. I'm not exactly sure what to do, but I'm not going to take monstrous risks that you even documented, that we could possibly make this worse. And I'm not saying that I love your background, I love all your experience, I trust what you're saying up here, but I have to address concerns and wait and get the residents, something that I believe that they need, especially when we're taking a turn with the plan. We're investing a ton of taxpayer money in doing this too with competent, talented people. But you started off speaking about the risks. And you know what, and as far as what the answer is, I love a good book. I haven't written one ever. You guys are the geniuses, but I know a good book when I read one. So I'm sorry I can't give you better feedback. I would listen to Alderman Bancroft a lot. Seeing continuity in a more flowing mixed use would be great. Past that, I'm just looking out for the best interest of St. Charles in an incredibly difficult situation. And yeah, I don't own the property, but I do have that responsibility. I take that incredibly serious. So if that helps at all, that is absolutely my perspective.
I agree with everything you say. We think that the risks have been mitigated by the plan which admittedly from a site plan perspective isn't nearly as exciting as Arboretum or Promenade or Algonquin Commons or some of the things at Fox Valley. And those are all failed, and we've learned from it. This type of development, there isn't a component of it that is that cutting edge. We're not trying to build something that really is supposed to be in Florida in more of an urban setting in 8 or 10 degrees. It just doesn't work. But it would look great. On paper, everybody would say, oh, you walk around everything else until you get to a night like this or 5-6 months of the year and nobody's around. This site plan mitigates the risk for us as developers, and we think that it mitigates you. Integrating everything, it just, by looking at it, I think we're really talking about a site plan that we just don't think will work in the setting. It's not an urban setting, it's still a suburban setting, a great suburban setting. But I really think that this site plan mitigates the risk for you and for us a lot more than something that we could look at and you'd say, oh, this is exciting. It'd be a lot richer.
When you look at me and you say us, you're seeing, 30 residents standing right behind me. So 30,000, excuse me.
Yeah.
I think everybody knew what I meant. But I get it. It's a challenge for sure. I don't know what I see right here. I don't know how to sell. As this is a great departure, and we can all be behind it. And we're taking something that is already, we don't love that, and saying this is going to be great. Everybody jump behind it. I don't know how to sell that yet, from what I've seen. And maybe that's my lack of understanding something else, but that's where I'm at.
I get it. I think that in all the malls that we've done, I will say, and it's interesting, and and I'm sure it's because you're hearing it from the residents. This is the one time that people don't really feel the pressure to get rid of a mall that's just sitting at 82 acres. It's the nucleus of the, you've got your urban core here. It's the nucleus of the suburban core, and it's the first time that we haven't seen somebody say, oh, you got to get rid of that thing. We got to get something that's going to be vibrant here. We haven't seen it, right?
Alderman Bussner, you got a question?
Yeah, I'll just add in, I was asking some questions and didn't give you enough feedback. But going back to that plaza, isn't there a way to expand that plaza a little bit larger and put it down in that pocket where that ring road comes around? This way, it's right along North Avenue, Main Street. It's visible. We could talk about the amenities of the plaza later, but you've got fountains, anything that would attract people, just off the street. Right now, to me, my opinion, is that plaza is buried behind the movie theater in Von Mar.
Well, we think the plaza would get no use if we put it down there. The whole intent of putting the plaza where it's at is to make it very, very convenient for the residents of the apartments, for the people that are going to the cinema, and from people that are shopping at Von Mars, and then from people that are dining in that restaurant district. So the intent is that the weather isn't like it is today, you stroll over to the plaza and spend some time there. And, we're going to do everything we can to have as many events there as possible, to be able to get refreshments there, to encourage people to have an ice cream cone before or after a movie. So I think it needs to be there to be successful. If we put it down near North Avenue where there's nothing else, it's not going to get used.
Well, I'm not suggesting putting it right on North Avenue, but at the same time, we're looking at 6 retail outlets or businesses that are going to happen in that particular area too. So that could easily be used as a plaza for people that are shopping or going to Von Mar, or even from that hotel for that matter. I just think, in my opinion, it's buried behind a building or two, and I don't think it's going to get the same kind of use that's exciting.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alderman Petrillo.
How would you describe just about architecture? I'm not an architect, probably should have been one, but anyway, what's the name of that type of architecture? Is that kind of like farm? Like, okay. And I mean, I personally think it looks interesting. I was going to say like modern farmhouse.
I was going to say modern farm, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's got a bit of Scandinavian. That was our inspiration. You know, it's got like a Scandinavian feel to it.
Okay. And so that, I mean, I know, again, conceptual, but are you committed to at least either using it exactly or something similar to that? So that what we're seeing is what you're, yeah. Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Things like that, discussion.
Oh, you're not going to go to like Prairie style or something? Nothing
No.
bad? No, okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments up here from the committee? Go ahead, Alderman Pay later.
I'm hearing what Alderman Besner is saying about the plaza and the public amenities there, but they're central, and I think where they are now is central. I don't think anybody is going to be driving by and that's going to be where they're coming from. I think this is a bonus. Am I right? I mean, you're at the theater and then you're going to see it. You're at, Von Maur, you're going to see it. You're at a restaurant, you're going to see it. And never mind all the residents that are surrounding there. So I like that it's tucked in, away from the noise of Route 64. It's a pretty noisy road, especially out there. I like that it's tucked in there and you can go there and you can enjoy the space. So I'm not sure that that's going to be what draws people to the location. I think it's going to be whatever the businesses are. That's what's going to draw people to it.
The intent was to get people to spend some additional time.
Right,
so you
stay.
Don't just go to Von Maur.
You want them to stay.
Right. So you
right.
want them to stay. So, you entice them with the food trucks or maybe a summer concert or a festival in that plaza.
Right.
That kind of a thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Is there, you have another one? Go ahead.
I'll concur with Alderman Payleitner mentioned. I mean, again, from your experience, folks from the townhomes, I mean, they like those amenities. I mean, that's who you want to be using this plaza.
Well, they'll come into that commercial area.
Yeah.
If you're living in an apartment, you want to go outside, you're going to find the area that's the most interesting is that corridor that we've created.
Right. So you don't want it close to because then.
Yes, definitely.
Random people might use it. Okay, so I'll concur with.
We're hoping to hear a little music on a summer evening, and 100 of them will come out.
Go ahead, Alderman Werball.
So the plaza, is that open to the public, or obviously?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
It would be open for now. What if somebody in the public, I don't know, the Arts Council or somebody wanted to utilize that?
Absolutely.
Are you open to it?
Yes.
We talked about programs.
Right. Right. Yeah, we would, high school bands, any community function. That's the intent.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, do we have any comments on Zoom or on the phone or anything like that? No? So obviously this meeting was public comment? Yes, sir. Wonderful. Please state your name and address.
Tom Anderson, 712 Horn. Next month will be 80 years in the town. So welcome all of you. Welcome all of you to the town. Also operate the Colonial Cafe that has been 60 years. Come out for breakfast, lunch, dinner down east of your project. And I remember when this mall came, and I said, gee, there aren't many outlot buildings, restaurants that are going to compete with me. How many years ago was that? And, well, it was true, very good. So the other comment on what has happened at East Main Street, you got car dealers, you got fast food places, churches, one, I guess, St. John Newman, and otherwise. And Heinz, nice greenhouse showed up in the middle because of zoning that didn't keep them out. So anyway, this type development is what our East Main Street is. It's not big developments of Pheasant Run or anything. So I guess I want to make an observation on excitement or no excitement. The north, and I can't point up there, but the area with Von Maur and And Cooper's Hawk looks kind of like it looks right now. It's got the parking lot, it's there, but you don't have a connection between the theater. Hopefully the theater at the end looks like a big palace as you go back and want to see something, you know? You're going to make a new end on it, right? Okay, make it look like it's exciting. But that looks like it looks now. It's not very exciting, big parking lot. But you're adding also 2 freestanding units in the front, which is what is happening on the rest of East Main Street. So then you get to the entrance, and yes, you got a nice roundabout. It looks like, this is the first time I've seen all this. You got a roundabout, you got a break in it, you've got more green space, and Starbucks, I guess, is there somewhere. And you enter going north into the nice green, what are they? What's the back end? Townhouses. You go back into the townhouses, away from Main Street, away from the traffic, next to lakes, and the residents, across the street must be very happy that that's the type of thing that's happening there. So then, if you go east of the main entrance, stoplight there, it becomes a bunch of apartment buildings with a lake. I don't think we have another lake anywhere else on East Main Street to look at. It's a break. They're saving a lake. And it's townhouses. It looks different. Apartments, excuse me, not the right word, apartments. I'm off of Prairie Street, and I see what Chodine is doing on the old St.Charles mall over there. And guys, it's just a bunch of long buildings that are huge, and I don't know what the density is, but I won't say it, but yeah, he got away with something, I think. But anyway, so this is creating a break from what is there now, which is better than. The given is that if you're going to keep Van Mar, you're going to keep the theater and Cooper's Hawk, this is about as what's going to come from anybody else. They're not going to move them, I guess, unless somebody wants to buy them out. I don't know what it takes. So as far as what could be expected out of this, density, you guys decide on density, but it looks like an improvement over what could happen or is there now for sure. And I like the plan. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Is there any more public comment?
Hi, good evening. My name is Nancy Gardafe. I live at 3736 King George Lane in Kingswood. Hello. Okay. So, I talked the other night at the Planning Commission and conveyed my concerns, and I'll convey it in front of you, Alderman, that, I grew up in Oak Lawn, Evergreen Park, so I'm familiar with Evergreen Plaza. Then we moved to Oak Brook, so I lived around another mall, a very successful mall. Then I moved out to Lombard and lived near Yorktown. I pushed out to St. Charles because this was my territory and my job, and I fell in love with St. Charles and the Fox Valley area because it was a quaint small town feel with all the amenities of a large town. So to have an urban feel, that was not what I was looking for. So I guess I'm saying this, I really don't want to, I don't think people push out this far to get an urban feel. I'm just saying. The concern is, for me, as a tax-paying citizen for 25 years, is all this rental property. What is this? What are the property taxes, since it's rental property, doing for us? You answered it brings in the millions and millions of more dollars, but maybe I just don't understand how TIF works, because if you're asking for money from the city, then that sort of, to me, negates the tax revenue. The other thing that I asked is, with this event center, how many more people is this going to bring in that's going to add to the congestion that I see because of all the density? And then I just think that a lot of the food trucks and the outside amphitheater and the gazebo that's going to hold Santa and the Easter Bunny, I just think that should turn into more of a park for the residents where they can, I mean, look at the parks in the surrounding communities where they can play baseball, where there's an area for kids, where there's a garden with a fountain where people can sit and read books or people watch. To me, all the food trucks and the gazebo, I mean, I'm not against the gazebo. I look out Mount St. Mary's and they have picnic tables underneath that gazebo. But I think a lot of it is fluff. And then the other thing is, I don't know if you have reached out to the surrounding communities, meaning Stewart, Charlemagne, Kingswood, and get their input, because we just had a conference call with the potential developers. D.R. Horton, they reached out to the surrounding community to get their input, or any concerns that, you know, this is going to impact all of us. So just a thought. And then I'm not getting a clear understanding of, you know, that you have historical data on the success of this type of concept. So that's very concerning. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for speaking. Is there any more public comment? Go ahead, sir.
I've done this before, but
Just
I'm a new
state your name,
resident.
address, and speak into the microphone.
I'm at 738 Riding Lane, Stewart's Crossing, which is right across from the Jewel.
Name?
My name's Tom Esposito.
Thank you.
My wife and I live there. My daughter lives in this town, her husband and 2 grandchildren. She was telling me that the school, Norton Creek, is like full. So with apartments, where are these kids going to go? That was one concern. And the congestion, is this going to be all rental units?
Yes, sir.
Which, what would be nice would be residential units, all residential instead of apartments. I can't see apartments there. You got a pot store right across the street, you know, and it just doesn't sound right. There's, is there going to be Section 8 apartments there too?
Not Section 8 currently as proposed, no. I mean, we do have an ordinance for affordable housing, so the developer can, in lieu of affordable housing, they can make a payment.
Yeah.
That goes into a fund, for the
Yeah.
housing fund.
And Mr. Chairman, affordable is not Section 8, not even close.
Well,
So just, yeah,
addressing
yeah,
affordable
right.
housing, yeah. So no, there would not be Section 8 housing there, no, but I was talking about there's an affordable housing ordinance that we have that the developer can agree to it, or in lieu of agreeing to the affordable housing ordinance, they can pay a fee in lieu of that.
So no Section 8?
No Section 8 housing.
It just seems like the other alderman here said, high rent, you know, they can buy a place. You know what I mean? That's why I would see it would be nice to have all residential. All of it in Charlemagne, which is right behind the construction proposed, a lot of those people don't know what's going on here. And it says in this sheet that I had, all owners of property within 250 feet of the site will be notified. A lot of people don't know what's going on right now.
It hasn't reached that stage yet, and that's why, like, this process is just to present the conceptual plan to get feedback. That way the developer can decide what to do.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of people won't be happy with rental units in that neighborhood because it's all nice houses. And, you know, they're going to be concerned about higher population in the school. And, you know, the schools are full. Are they going to build another school? Raise taxes more? You know, it's like the taxpayer's not a bottomless pit. You know what I mean? There has to be a level here, you know, a stop, a freeze. You know, it's just crazy. And the roads right now on the map, they're going to stay the same on our side with no additional traffic going into it?
I mean, right now we just have a conceptual plan, so nothing is set in stone at all. This is just for feedback for the developer. So all very good, valid questions, and that's why, you know, at the end of the meeting, there will be, you know, the minutes are recorded so that the developer can see the, you know, the questions and comments and stuff like that, and then they can decide what they want to do.
Okay. Yeah, it just doesn't sound right. There's in the area there's not enough parking. You know, the way it is right now, every weekend, the parking lot is full by Cooper's Hawk, all the way up to Von Mayer there. You know, have you been by there and noticed that?
Absolutely.
So that's one area. The other, you know, there's going to be no parking. I don't know, there's just not enough space. That's the problem. And for them to have 500 units plus, or 500 and, I don't know, it was actually more like 560 units instead of 500, you know, it's even more populated. So it just doesn't sound good.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Esposito. We appreciate them. Is there any more public comment? Seeing none, obviously, there was going to be no action taken tonight. We were just to provide feedback to you. Hopefully, you were taking very diligent notes. We have a lot of different opinions on what should or shouldn't be done. Hopefully, we've provided you with feedback to help you to decide what you guys do in the future. No one else has any more comments. You've heard from everybody. You can, you know, look up the minutes from the meeting. I, as the chair, you know, listen to everything. I mean, lots of notes, all different things, density, flow. Obviously, there's aldermen that like the concept, some that don't. This is a tough piece of property. I understand that from looking at it. It's got to work for you financially. It has to work for the city too. There is 33,000 people that have been seeing this the way it is for a long time. So I don't think there's anybody that doesn't want something to happen here. I just think that, you know, we are not developers ourselves, so we have to base things on what's put in front of us. We have to provide feedback on what's put in front of us. Just like in any, you know, conversation, some of the stuff you like, some of it you don't like, some of it we like, some of it we don't like. I mean, so it's a tough thing, but hopefully you got some of the answers that you guys needed. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So we got one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to talk about the loft project. Thank you, Russell. Sorry.
Update on the Crystal Lofts project. So we have confirmed that the property is under contract to be sold, and staff's been in communications with the contract purchaser to discuss their plans for the reuse of the property, proposed as some light industrial or flexible use space. So at this point, they're in the process of doing due diligence to try and understand the constraints of the site and also potential costs associated with the development. The new purchaser will not be in a position really to address those site conditions until they take ownership. But in the meantime, staff is working with the potential purchaser to facilitate the information gathering and assist with any of the city approvals that might be needed for their purchase of the property to move forward. That's
So
the update.
there's been fines that have been issued, is everything just kind of at a standstill right now until the due diligence is done, or?
Yes, so at this point, the current owner has not taken any action to address the site conditions. So we're working with the contract purchaser in the hopes that they would be able to correct those conditions when they take over the property based on their plan for reuse of the building.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments about that? Go ahead, Mr. Sokanis.
Good evening. Yeah, so what is the timeline for this? I mean, or there is none?
So the contract purchaser has a 60-day due diligence period.
From when?
From late December. So they are in the process right now of assessing what's going to be required to address the property issues, to be able to do what they want to do. So we have that time period.
Which would be, what, the end of February?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that being said, I'll wait the next month, but if nothing, we don't get more information next month, I want to at least give us some idea what our next steps are. I'll give them another month since they're still negotiating, but if we don't hear anything, I'd like what our options are, how to proceed next to get this moving along one way or another.
Thank you, Alderman Sokanis. Go ahead, Alderman Warwell.
So let's say the deal closes and the new owner takes over the property. They still have to address all of those violations. How long do they have to bring them up to code?
That'll be something that we'd have to negotiate with the purchaser, because if they're in a position to address kind of the immediate issues right away to make the property at least in a more stable, cleaned up state, we'd be able to negotiate with respect to the fines that'll be outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more question.
Go ahead, Alderman Vester.
I know Chairman Weber already brought this up. So the fines currently that are on this property, they don't just go away, they're just kind of stopped right now?
They'll be recorded against the property.
Mm-hmm.
They will continue to generate by the day.
By the day, right?
Yes, that'll continue to be added.
Okay. And is it realistic to expect the new property owner to either A, address them obviously, and then two, pay the fine?
Well, the expectation would be that the new property owner, in exchange for addressing the issues as quickly as they can, that the city would be lenient releasing the fines. So we use that as an incentive to encourage them.
Yeah, I'm trying to see it go down a long path of legal fees and fines, so thank you.
Is that it? Any more questions or comments on that? Thank you. Any additional business that we need to talk about? No?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, no need for executive session?
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Yes.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Wirball, seconded by Alderman Bongard. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned.
Wait, Steve, I thought I motioned.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, like before.